She pushed the mop bucket across the polished floor, her movements quiet and methodical. The command center hummed with activity around her as officers analyzed data streams and coordinated global operations. When the main screen flickered to life with mission briefings, she glanced up briefly, then returned to cleaning the baseboards. Nobody noticed her there among the shadows and computer stations. Nobody suspected that the woman emptying their trash cans had once been the architect of their most critical protocols. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. The Peterson Air Force Base Strategic Command Center operated on a rhythm as precise as atomic clockwork. Every morning at 05:45 hours, the overnight skeleton crew would brief the incoming day shift officers. Coffee dispensers gurgled to life. Computer terminals cast their blue glow across faces studying satellite feeds from 6 continents. The massive overhead displays showed real-time data from operations spanning 3 time zones. Margaret Chen arrived through the service entrance at exactly 0530, the same time she had every weekday for the past 8 months. Her custodial uniform bore the logo of Patriot Cleaning Services, a company that had held the base maintenance contract for over a decade. She wheeled her cart through security checkpoints where guards barely glanced at her familiar face, their attention focused on the stream of uniformed personnel beginning their shifts. The command center represented the nerve center of North American aerospace defense operations. Here, Air Force colonels and Navy commanders coordinated with civilian intelligence agencies to track potential threats across global airspace. The facility processed thousands of data points every hour, filtering noise from legitimate security concerns that could trigger responses costing millions of dollars. Margaret navigated her cart between workstations where junior officers hunched over keyboards, cross-referencing flight patterns with known aircraft registrations. She emptied wastebaskets filled with classified document shreds, their destruction required by protocols so stringent that even the paper remnants underwent additional processing. Her movements followed the same pattern every morning, starting with the peripheral stations and working inward toward the central command area. The officers barely acknowledged her presence. To them, she was part of the facility's infrastructure, as unremarkable as the ventilation system or emergency lighting. They continued their conversations about missile tracking algorithms and international airspace violations while she wiped down surfaces and replaced trash can liners. Her gray hair was pulled back in a simple bun. Her posture suggested someone accustomed to physical labor rather than intellectual challenge. Lieutenant Colonel Harrison Webb supervised the morning shift transition, his attention divided between personnel reports and the overnight incident log. 3 potential airspace violations had been investigated and cleared. 2 commercial aircraft had deviated from approved flight paths due to weather conditions. 1 unidentified aircraft had appeared briefly on radar near the Canadian border before disappearing again, likely a private plane with malfunctioning transponder equipment. Webb's experience managing command center operations spanned 15 years, including deployments to forward operating bases where split-second decisions could determine mission success or failure. He understood the careful balance between vigilance and overreaction that kept American airspace secure without triggering false alarms that could escalate into international incidents. Margaret worked around the central command station where Webb reviewed overnight reports. She refilled the supply dispenser with sanitizing wipes and checked that all computer keyboards had been properly cleaned according to security maintenance protocols. Her movements were efficient but unobtrusive, designed to minimize disruption to ongoing operations. The morning briefing began promptly at 0600 hours. Margaret continued her cleaning routine while officers gathered around the main display screen for updates on current threat assessments. She had witnessed hundreds of these briefings, always maintaining her focus on custodial responsibilities while carefully avoiding any appearance of eavesdropping on classified discussions. Major Sarah Rodriguez presented the overnight intelligence summary. 3 foreign military aircraft had conducted training exercises within international waters, but close enough to trigger monitoring protocols. Commercial shipping lanes remained clear of suspicious activity. Satellite imagery had detected no unusual ground-based installations in regions of strategic interest. Margaret emptied the recycling bins containing non-classified materials like food packaging and personal items. The officers treated her as invisible, their conversations continuing without pause as she worked around their stations. Her security clearance allowed her access to the facility, but not to classified information, a distinction that everyone understood and respected. The command center's morning routine represented years of refined procedures designed to maintain operational security while ensuring that essential facility maintenance continued without interruption. Margaret's presence had become so routine that duty officers would notice more if she were absent than they noticed her daily activities. She moved methodically through the workstation area, dusting computer monitors and ensuring that each officer's workspace met the stringent cleanliness standards required for sensitive electronic equipment. Her attention to detail had earned positive evaluations from facility supervisors who appreciated her consistent performance and professional discretion. The overnight duty officer completed his status report and prepared to transfer responsibility to the day shift commander. Margaret finished cleaning the main briefing area and began working on the peripheral monitoring stations where specialists tracked aircraft movements across designated sectors of North American airspace. Her routine was so established that she could perform most tasks without conscious thought, her hands automatically reaching for the appropriate cleaning supplies while her mind remained focused on maintaining the professional invisibility that the position required. She understood the importance of the work happening around her, even if her role was limited to ensuring that the physical environment remained properly maintained. The morning briefing concluded with standard protocol assignments. Webb distributed sector monitoring responsibilities, while Rodriguez coordinated with intelligence liaisons at Cheyenne Mountain. Margaret continued her cleaning rotation, now focusing on the computer terminals that displayed classified tracking data around the clock. Captain Jessica Martinez arrived 30 minutes behind schedule, her flight delayed from Andrews Air Force Base due to severe weather patterns affecting the eastern seaboard. She carried a sealed briefcase containing updated threat assessment protocols that required immediate integration into existing defense systems. Her security credentials granted her access to classification levels that most base personnel never encountered. Margaret noticed Martinez's arrival but maintained her focus on sanitizing the workstation keyboards. The captain's uniform bore insignia indicating special operations background, the kind of experience that typically preceded assignment to strategic command positions. Her stride suggested confidence earned through field operations rather than administrative advancement. The morning shift was settling into their routine monitoring activities when the primary communication array received an encrypted transmission from Pacific Command. The message carried priority classifications that automatically triggered enhanced security protocols throughout the facility. Red indicator lights activated at key workstations, signaling that sensitive information was being processed. Margaret adjusted her cleaning pattern to avoid the active workstations where officers were responding to the incoming intelligence. She had learned to read the facility's rhythms, understanding which activities required complete privacy and which allowed her to continue her maintenance duties nearby. Her experience working around classified operations had taught her the subtle art of professional invisibility. Lieutenant Commander David Thompson emerged from the secure communications room carrying printouts that required immediate analysis by the threat assessment team. His expression suggested the information contained significant implications for current operations. He moved directly to Webb's central command station, bypassing the normal chain of communication that would filter routine intelligence through junior officers. The command center's atmosphere shifted almost imperceptibly as personnel recognized that something beyond routine monitoring was developing. Conversations became more focused. Officers checked their communication devices more frequently. Margaret observed these changes while continuing her work, her years of experience in military environments allowing her to sense operational tension without understanding its specific cause. Martinez opened her briefcase and began installing software updates on the primary analysis computer. The new protocols apparently addressed vulnerabilities in existing tracking systems that could potentially compromise mission effectiveness. Her fingers moved quickly across the keyboard, implementing changes that would affect how the facility processed incoming intelligence data. Margaret worked around the increased activity, her movements adapting to the changing dynamics without disrupting ongoing operations. She had developed an intuitive understanding of when to pause her cleaning activities and when to continue working despite the heightened security awareness around her. The secure telephone at Webb's station rang with the distinctive tone that indicated a direct connection from Strategic Air Command headquarters. He answered immediately, his responses limited to brief confirmations that revealed nothing about the conversation's content to unauthorized listeners. Margaret emptied nearby trash receptacles, while carefully avoiding any appearance of interest in the classified discussion. Thompson coordinated with specialists at monitoring stations around the perimeter of the command center. Each workstation displayed different aspects of the same operational picture, creating a comprehensive view of potential threats that no single analyst could process independently. The collaborative nature of their work required constant communication between team members who specialized in different types of intelligence analysis. Margaret's cleaning routine brought her closer to the central command area, where the most sensitive discussions were taking place. She noticed increased radio traffic from field units reporting their status to base operations. Aircraft were being repositioned according to new tactical requirements. Naval vessels were adjusting their patrol patterns to provide enhanced coverage of critical shipping lanes. The facility's backup power systems activated briefly during a routine test, their emergency generators providing additional electrical capacity that would ensure uninterrupted operations during potential crisis situations. Margaret paused her work momentarily as the lights flickered, then resumed cleaning when normal power was restored. Martinez completed her software installation and began running diagnostic tests to verify that the new protocols were functioning correctly. The computer screens displayed cascading data streams that meant nothing to unauthorized observers but provided critical information to trained intelligence analysts. Her concentration on the technical implementation suggested the updates addressed serious operational concerns. Preparing and narrating the story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. Webb's telephone conversation concluded with arrangements for a video conference that would connect the facility with defense officials in Washington. Margaret moved her cleaning cart away from the central command area to provide privacy for the upcoming high-level discussion. Her timing appeared coincidental, but years of working in secure environments had taught her to anticipate when sensitive conversations required additional discretion. The morning's routine activities had evolved into something more purposeful and focused. Officers who typically handled standard monitoring duties were now coordinating responses to intelligence that clearly exceeded normal threat levels. Margaret continued her work while remaining alert to changing security requirements that might affect her access to different areas of the facility. Thompson activated the main display screen in preparation for the video conference. The massive monitor showed a map of North American airspace, with dozens of tracking indicators representing aircraft under surveillance. Each symbol contained information about flight paths, aircraft specifications, and potential security implications that required constant evaluation by trained analysts. Margaret finished cleaning the peripheral workstations and began working on the conference area, where Webb would conduct his discussion with senior defense officials. The increased activity level suggested that today would deviate significantly from the routine operations that typically characterized morning shifts at the Strategic Command Center. The video conference connection was established at precisely 0847 hours. The main display screen is divided into multiple windows showing defense officials from the Pentagon, NORAD headquarters, and Strategic Air Command. Webb straightened his uniform and activated the secure communication protocol that would encrypt all audio and video transmission during the classified briefing. Margaret positioned herself near the back wall, organizing cleaning supplies while the high-level discussion began. General Patricia Hawkins appeared on the central screen, her four-star insignia clearly visible as she addressed the assembled command center personnel. Her presence indicated that whatever intelligence had triggered this conference carried implications at the highest levels of national defense. "We have a situation developing in the Arctic region," General Hawkins began, her voice carrying the authority of someone accustomed to managing international crises. "Satellite reconnaissance has identified unusual activity patterns that require immediate analysis and potential response coordination." Webb leaned forward as classified images appeared on auxiliary screens around the command center. The satellite photographs showed installations that had not existed during the previous week's intelligence sweep. Construction equipment and personnel were visible, suggesting rapid deployment of facilities designed for purposes that remained unclear. Margaret continued her work while the briefing proceeded, her movements automatic as she processed what she was hearing. The installations appeared to violate international agreements regarding military activities in disputed territorial waters. The speed of their construction suggested planning and preparation that had remained hidden from normal intelligence gathering methods. Captain Martinez pulled up additional data on her workstation, cross-referencing the new satellite imagery with historical patterns of activity in the same region. Her analysis revealed that the current construction represented a significant escalation from previous activities that had been dismissed as routine scientific research operations. The installations include communication arrays capable of intercepting civilian and military traffic across multiple frequency ranges, Martinez reported to the conference participants. Signal analysis indicates they're already operational and actively gathering intelligence on North American defense communications. She observed the security messages appearing on his screen, noting the specific clearance requirements that were preventing access to the historical files. Her expression remained neutral, but her attention focused completely on the authentication protocols displayed on the computer monitor. General Hawkins grew increasingly frustrated with the delays in accessing relevant background intelligence. We need that historical data to understand the strategic implications of these new installations. Without context about previous activities in the region, we're operating with incomplete information that could lead to inappropriate responses. The command center fell silent as personnel realized that critical intelligence remained beyond their reach, despite the urgency of the developing situation. Years of security protocols designed to protect sensitive information were now preventing authorized officials from accessing data they needed to protect national security interests. Margaret stepped forward from her position near the back wall. Her movement was quiet but deliberate, drawing attention from officers who had barely noticed her presence throughout the morning. She approached Webb's workstation, where the security authentication screen continued to display access requirements for the restricted historical files. "Excuse me, sir," she said softly, her voice carrying an unexpected tone of authority that contrasted sharply with her custodial appearance. "May I?" Webb looked up in surprise, uncertain why the cleaning lady was approaching his classified computer system. The video conference participants remained visible on the main screen. Their conversations paused as they observed the unexpected interruption. Margaret's request seemed impossible given her security clearance level and custodial position. She reached toward the keyboard with steady hands, her fingers poised above the authentication prompt that had blocked access to the historical Arctic intelligence. Her movement suggested familiarity with the security system that seemed inconsistent with her maintenance worker status. The command center held its collective breath as Margaret entered a complex authorization code that none of the military officers recognized. The screen flickered momentarily, then displayed a new authentication level that granted access to historical files that had been sealed for over 2 decades. The historical files cascaded across multiple screens as Margaret's authorization unlocked decades of classified Arctic operations. Webb stared at his computer monitor in disbelief as intelligence reports from the 1990s appeared, detailing surveillance missions that had never been publicly acknowledged. The security clearance she had just accessed exceeded anything he had encountered during his 15-year career. General Hawkins leaned forward on the video screen, her attention suddenly focused entirely on the woman in custodial uniform who had effortlessly bypassed security restrictions that had stumped military officers with top-secret clearances. "Who exactly is accessing those files?" she demanded, her voice carrying an edge of authority mixed with growing curiosity. Margaret navigated through the historical database with practiced efficiency, pulling up specific intelligence reports that directly related to the current Arctic installations. Her fingers moved across the keyboard with the speed and precision of someone intimately familiar with the classification system and its contents. She located 3 separate mission files that provided crucial context for understanding the new threat. The first file detailed Operation Frozen Shield, a covert surveillance mission conducted 23 years earlier that had mapped enemy capabilities in the exact region where the new installations now appeared. The intelligence revealed that adversaries had been planning strategic positioning in that area for over 2 decades, using environmental research as cover for military preparations. Webb watched in stunned silence as Margaret accessed files that required clearance levels he had never seen. Her casual demeanor while handling the most sensitive national security information suggested experience with classification systems that operated far above normal military channels. She was not guessing at navigation paths through the database. She knew exactly where to find specific intelligence. Captain Martinez abandoned her own workstation and moved closer to observe Margaret's database searches. The historical files contained technical specifications for surveillance equipment that had been deployed during missions that Martinez had never heard mentioned in any intelligence briefing. The technology described in the 20-year-old reports exceeded capabilities that she thought were recent developments. The second file revealed Operation Arctic Mirror, an intelligence gathering mission that had successfully penetrated enemy communication networks in the disputed territory. Margaret opened detailed reports about signal interception methods that had provided American forces with advance warning about enemy activities throughout the 1990s. The mission had prevented multiple international incidents through early intelligence about hostile intentions. General Hawkins spoke directly to Margaret through the video connection. "Ma'am, I need to understand your authorization level for accessing those files. Those operations remain classified at levels that require presidential approval for disclosure." Her tone had shifted from military authority to something approaching respect, as if she was beginning to recognize something significant about Margaret's background. Margaret turned from the computer screen to face the video conference display. Her posture straightened subtly, revealing a bearing that had been hidden beneath her custodial appearance. "General Hawkins, these installations are using the same communication frequencies and construction patterns as the facilities we neutralized during Frozen Shield. The enemy is implementing contingency plans that were developed after our previous success." The command center fell completely silent. Margaret's use of the word "our" when referring to classified military operations had not gone unnoticed by anyone present. Her knowledge of operational details that were not contained in the computer files she had accessed suggested personal involvement in missions that had occurred decades earlier. Thompson was the first to recognize the implications of what they were witnessing. Margaret was not just accessing historical intelligence. She was providing analysis based on personal experience with operations that had shaped American Arctic strategy for over 20 years. Her cleaning lady disguise was concealing someone whose background included direct participation in some of the most sensitive missions ever conducted. The third file Margaret opened contained detailed photographs from Arctic reconnaissance missions, including images of personnel who had conducted the dangerous intelligence-gathering work. She scrolled through dozens of mission photographs showing team members in extreme weather conditions, their faces partially obscured by protective gear, but their tactical expertise clearly evident. Webb leaned closer to his screen as Margaret paused on a particular photograph. The image showed a mission team positioned near communication equipment in conditions that looked identical to the current satellite intelligence about enemy installations. The team leader in the photograph was partially visible despite protective clothing and equipment. Margaret minimized the historical files and activated the current satellite feed showing the new Arctic installations. She overlaid the historical photographs with contemporary imagery, demonstrating tactical similarities that revealed enemy strategy spanning multiple decades. Her analysis connected past intelligence with current threats in ways that none of the military officers had recognized. The construction timeline suggests they've been moving equipment into position during winter months when satellite coverage is limited by weather conditions, Margaret explained to the video conference participants. "They're using the same supply routes we identified during Arctic Mirror, but they've adapted their timing to avoid the surveillance windows we established." General Hawkins was studying Margaret intently through the video connection. "What was your operational designation during those missions?" she asked, her question carrying implications that everyone in the command center immediately understood. Margaret was being asked to identify herself as someone who had participated in classified operations, rather than just accessing their records. Margaret turned back to the computer screen and opened one final file, the mission roster for Operation Frozen Shield. She scrolled down through a list of personnel assignments until she reached the command structure section. At the top of the organizational chart was a single entry, Mission Commander, Arctic Theater Operations. She clicked on the commander's file, and her photograph from 23 years earlier appeared on the main display screen. The image showed her in military uniform with insignia indicating Strategic Operations Authority. The younger Margaret in the photograph was obviously the same person who now stood in custodial clothing beside Webb's workstation. The video conference participants and command center personnel stared at the screen in absolute silence. The woman who had been emptying their trash cans and cleaning their computer keyboards was Major General Margaret Chen, retired, the architect of American Arctic intelligence operations and the commanding officer who had designed the surveillance networks that were still protecting national security decades later. General Hawkins slowly stood at attention in front of her video camera. "General Chen," she said formally, her voice carrying deep respect. "We weren't expecting to find you here." General Hawkins authorized the declassification of Margaret's complete service record for the assembled personnel. The files that appeared on screen revealed a military career that had begun with Army intelligence, before transitioning to joint operations that crossed all service boundaries. Her early assignments included linguistic training in Russian, Mandarin, and 3 Arctic indigenous languages that provided crucial advantages during cold-weather reconnaissance missions. Margaret's first Arctic deployment occurred during her promotion to captain, when she volunteered for experimental survival training that would later become standard protocol for special operations personnel. The program tested new equipment and procedures in temperatures that regularly dropped below -40 degrees Fahrenheit. Her psychological evaluations noted exceptional adaptability to extreme isolation and hostile environmental conditions. The training led to her selection for Operation Glacier Watch, a surveillance mission that required 6 months of solitary observation at a weather station that served as cover for monitoring Soviet submarine activities beneath Arctic ice. She maintained radio silence for the entire deployment, gathering intelligence through visual observation and electronic interception, while appearing to conduct routine meteorological research. Her success during Glacier Watch resulted in promotion to major and assignment to develop new protocols for extended Arctic operations. Margaret spent 2 years designing equipment modifications that would allow surveillance teams to operate effectively in conditions that had previously limited American intelligence gathering capabilities. Her innovations included heating systems that avoided detection by thermal sensors and communication methods that functioned despite magnetic interference from polar conditions. The protocols she developed enabled Operation Frozen Shield, the mission that had established American intelligence dominance in the Arctic region throughout the 1990s. Margaret commanded a joint task force that included Navy SEALs, Air Force reconnaissance specialists, and CIA technical operatives, who worked together to penetrate enemy installations that were supposedly conducting environmental research. Her tactical leadership during Frozen Shield prevented 3 separate incidents that could have escalated into military confrontations with international implications. The mission team successfully gathered intelligence proving that environmental research facilities were actually constructing submarine bases capable of launching attacks against North American targets. The evidence Margaret's team collected was used in diplomatic negotiations that forced the removal of military installations without public acknowledgement of their true purpose. The mission's success led to her promotion to lieutenant colonel and assignment to establish the Arctic Intelligence Center, a classified facility that coordinated surveillance activities across polar regions for all American military branches. Margaret supervised the installation of monitoring stations that appeared to be scientific research facilities, but actually provided comprehensive coverage of enemy activities in previously inaccessible areas. Her work expanding American Arctic intelligence capabilities earned recognition from the Director of National Intelligence and assignment to the Pentagon's Strategic Planning Division. Margaret's expertise in cold weather operations became the foundation for contingency plans that addressed potential conflicts in regions where traditional military tactics would be ineffective due to environmental challenges. During her Pentagon assignment, Margaret developed the theoretical framework for what would become Operation Arctic Mirror, the intelligence-gathering mission that had successfully intercepted enemy communications for over a decade. Her analysis of enemy capabilities led to the deployment of surveillance equipment that remained undetected while providing continuous intelligence about hostile military preparations. The success of Arctic Mirror resulted in her promotion to colonel and selection for the Army War College's Strategic Studies program. Margaret's thesis examined the geopolitical implications of climate change on Arctic military operations, predicting that environmental changes would create new strategic opportunities and vulnerabilities that required completely different approaches to regional security. Her academic work at the War College attracted attention from the Joint Chiefs of Staff, who appointed her to chair a classified committee studying future Arctic threats. The committee's recommendations shaped defense spending priorities and international treaty negotiations that addressed military activities in polar regions. Margaret's strategic vision influenced American policy decisions that remained classified but affected global security arrangements. Following completion of her War College studies, Margaret received promotion to Brigadier General and command of the newly established Joint Arctic Operations Command. Her responsibilities included coordinating military activities across service boundaries in regions where traditional command structures were ineffective due to communication limitations and logistical challenges. Under her leadership, Joint Arctic Operations Command conducted missions that prevented multiple international crises through early intelligence gathering and diplomatic coordination. Margaret's ability to analyze complex strategic situations and develop appropriate responses earned recognition from civilian intelligence agencies that rarely collaborated with military commanders at the operational level. Her final promotion to Major General came with an assignment to design the strategic framework that would guide American Arctic operations for the following 20 years. Margaret's comprehensive analysis of regional threats and opportunities became the classified doctrine that continued to influence military planning decades after her retirement from active service. The strategic doctrine she developed addressed scenarios that seemed theoretical at the time but proved remarkably prescient as international tensions increased in polar regions. Her predictions about enemy capabilities and intentions provided the foundation for surveillance systems that successfully monitored hostile activities while maintaining plausible deniability about American intelligence gathering operations. Margaret's decision to retire from active duty surprised many colleagues who expected her to pursue positions in civilian intelligence agencies or defense contracting companies that would have utilized her unique expertise. Instead, she chose complete withdrawal from the intelligence community, accepting a modest government pension and disappearing into civilian life with no forwarding address or contact information. Her retirement file contained a single notation explaining her decision. After 26 years of service to national security interests, I require time for personal reflection away from operational responsibilities that have defined my adult life. I am confident that the systems and personnel I have helped develop will continue protecting American interests without my direct involvement. The intelligence community respected her privacy, maintaining classification of her service record and avoiding any attempts to contact her for consulting work that might have compromised her civilian anonymity. Margaret Chen had earned the right to disappear completely from the world of strategic operations and classified missions that had consumed nearly 3 decades of her life. The Arctic crisis was resolved within 72 hours using intelligence protocols that Margaret had designed 23 years earlier. Her real-time analysis of enemy installations enabled surgical strikes that neutralized the threat without triggering international incidents. The mission's success validated strategic frameworks that she had developed during her active service, proving that her foresight had protected American interests for decades beyond her retirement. Lieutenant Colonel Webb submitted a classified report documenting Margaret's unexpected contribution to the mission's success. His analysis noted that without her specialized knowledge and database access, the intelligence community would have required weeks to develop appropriate responses to the Arctic installations. Her presence during the crisis had prevented delays that could have allowed enemy forces to complete their strategic positioning. The report triggered a comprehensive review of Margaret's decision to work in custodial services at Peterson Air Force Base. Intelligence officials discovered that she had deliberately chosen employment that would provide access to current operations without requiring her to resume classified responsibilities. Her custodial position allowed her to observe modern military procedures while maintaining the anonymity she had earned through decades of service. Captain Martinez was promoted to major and assigned to lead a new Arctic Intelligence Division that would implement updated versions of Margaret's original protocols. Her selection reflected recognition that the strategic frameworks Margaret had developed required officers with deep understanding of both technical capabilities and geopolitical implications. The new division became responsible for monitoring activities across polar regions using surveillance methods that Margaret had pioneered. General Hawkins authorized the establishment of the Chen Arctic Strategic Institute, a classified research facility dedicated to continuing Margaret's work on polar region security. The Institute's mission included developing new intelligence-gathering capabilities that would address threats that Margaret's original systems had not anticipated. Her theoretical frameworks provided the foundation for research programs that would influence military planning for the next generation of Arctic operations. The video conference that had revealed Margaret's identity became a turning point for intelligence coordination between civilian and military agencies. Officials recognized that the compartmentalization of classified information had nearly prevented them from accessing expertise that was essential for national security. New protocols were developed to ensure that retired personnel with critical knowledge could be contacted during emergency situations without compromising their privacy. Margaret's custodial supervisor at Patriot Cleaning Services received a commendation for maintaining employment records that protected her privacy while ensuring her security clearance remained active. The company's discretion had enabled her to work in an environment where she could contribute to national security without resuming the operational responsibilities that she had chosen to leave behind. 3 months after the Arctic crisis, Margaret submitted her resignation from Patriot Cleaning Services with a simple explanation that she was relocating to pursue opportunities that better matched her background and interests. Her departure from Peterson Air Force Base occurred without ceremony, maintaining the low profile that she had preserved throughout her civilian employment. The command center personnel, who had witnessed her revelation, never forgot the moment when their understanding of power and authority was completely transformed. Webb began using the incident as a teaching example in leadership courses, explaining how true expertise often operated without seeking recognition or demanding respect. His students learned that the most valuable contributions to national security sometimes came from people who chose anonymity over advancement. Thompson was selected for assignment to the Chen Arctic Strategic Institute, where his experience working with Margaret during the crisis qualified him to help implement her strategic vision. His role included training new intelligence officers in analytical methods that Margaret had developed, ensuring that her approaches to complex problem-solving would continue influencing military operations. The main display screen in the command center was modified to include a discrete memorial recognizing personnel who had contributed to facility operations without public acknowledgement. Margaret's name did not appear on the memorial, but informed observers understood that the tribute honored her service and the service of others who had chosen similar paths of quiet contribution to national security. Military academies began incorporating case studies about the Arctic crisis into their curriculum, using the incident to teach cadets about the importance of recognizing expertise regardless of its apparent source. Students learned that valuable knowledge often existed outside normal hierarchical structures, and that effective leaders remained alert to contributions from unexpected sources. The Peterson Air Force Base cleaning contract was modified to include enhanced background screening procedures that would identify retired military personnel seeking civilian employment at defense facilities. The new procedures ensured that qualified individuals could contribute their expertise while maintaining the anonymity they preferred, creating opportunities for continued service without formal re-engagement with military responsibilities. Margaret's story spread through informal networks within the intelligence community, becoming a legend about dedication that transcended official recognition. Veterans organizations used her example to encourage retired personnel to find ways of continuing their service to national security, even if their contributions remained invisible to public acknowledgement. Defense contractors began recruiting retired officers for positions that utilized their specialized knowledge, while respecting their desire for reduced responsibility and public visibility. Margaret's path from general officer to custodial worker demonstrated that valuable expertise could take many forms, and that meaningful service did not require traditional career advancement or institutional recognition. The command center where Margaret had been recognized became a destination for senior officers who wanted to understand how exceptional individuals chose to serve their country. Visitors learned that true leadership often operated through influence rather than authority, and that the most important work sometimes occurred in environments where it would never receive appropriate recognition. Years later, when new threats emerged in polar regions, intelligence analysts would reference the Chen Protocols as the foundational framework for American Arctic operations. Margaret's strategic vision continued protecting national security long after she had disappeared from official service, proving that some contributions transcended individual careers and shaped institutional capabilities for generations. Her legacy lived not in monuments or medals, but in the quiet effectiveness of systems that prevented conflicts through superior intelligence gathering and strategic planning. She had chosen a path that valued substance over recognition, demonstrating that real power came from service rather than position, and that the most meaningful contributions often remained invisible to those they protected. Up next, you've got two more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hits the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.